Call the spaceships to Davenport. Prepare for divanarchy and interface with a couch in space. It's space couch time. It's just the stars align, pardon the pun, whenever it's space couch time. Well, I suppose they align. We could force them to align. That's all just a mode of perspective, right? And as long as we have infinite power over modality here in this flying couch, we can make that happen. But what we're going to make happen is another wonderful episode. Angel Spit first in the chat room today. What's up, man? We got a great episode in store. Really excited to talk to today's guest, Furroy, DJ D42. We got Space Couch royalty in the chat today, so let's just get right into it. We got a hit as you know, we got a hit advertising. It's of course Tiger Squawk Records. You want to check out Same Stories Lamentations. It's sick. It's Aeternus Memoria. It's 84 tracks of wonderfulness. The new Israel is a beast. You want to check out Nightsicles. We worked so hard on this. Please get that. Doodad, the new single from Duckbag TM. You want to check out Amalgamated Cadaver live at Virtual Temple 5. We're going to play Virtual Temple 6. Grasp Logic, Echo Bot. There's a new one I didn't put in here. I fucked that up. Batavia and their Friends Forever is wonderful. All About the Gothic Species, the Irish festival song we did, available for free. Dr. Lovecraft's Dating Sim, out now on Tiger Squawk. It's My Life, as covered by Norway's Industrial. Check that out. 3 new singles from Pill Brigade. Get that all at tigersquawkrecords.bandcamp.com. Also want to give a shout out. We would not be here without our Patreon supporters. You want to check out Gozer Games for the finest in games and gaming accessory. Jelly What at jellywhat.com. Lured by Radio, my buddy Pat. Dominic. Big ups to Dominic for all the emptiness himself. Grim Reaper for hire himself. Bremley themselves. Ray out of Providence. Fly ahead. Baton Rouge. Planet Damage him very self out of Hungary. My buddy Phil. Hent Hunk Hawk for the Ditch. Have you seen the Ditch yet? Check that out. Go to patreon.com/Gothicles. Speaking of Space Couch royalty, Syrinx is in the chat room today. Oh, everybody came out. For me, for no other reason. We have no guest today. I'm kidding. Our guest today is I don't even know. Such a, what's the word I'm looking for? Pillar of the community is a phrase that's often overused, but I'm going to take that metaphor and industrialize it into girder beam of the community. Just has never sort of not been there, but I don't really know too much about this person other than I love their product. Who doesn't love a great PAT626 mix show? But now that I just said the name of the guest out loud, let's please welcome our guest, ladies and gentlemen. PAT626, what's up?
Oh my God. Wait, I'm on the show. I was just watching.
We are doing, I'm glad you started there. We are doing something of a comics crossover where, at the end of Hellblazer, you'd have to read Shazam 69 to find Shazam 69. That's Sham 69. Weird Freudian slip there into punk rock. I don't know what you call the punk rock Freudian slip. That's our band. I'm still talking, and I shouldn't be because I want to know all about our guest today.
You have just come up, I'm one of the few people you haven't been in a band with yet. So now that's our band. It's going to be Punk Rock Freudian Slip. We got it.
Punk Rock Freudian Slip. There's a lot of material there, actually. Yep. But speaking of material, let's interviewer versus interviewer. There can be only one. Well, perhaps, but says DJ D42. Well, I think we're both immortal in our own right, and let's do a little gathering here to carry that Highlander theme.
As long as
Uh,
we're not doing Highlander, well, we could be doing Highlander too because this is Space Couch.
oh,
So
there
now
you
we're Highlanders in
go.
space.
Well, oh, right, and Michael Ironside is here for some reason,
Yeah.
but. General Katana, fuck out of here. Well, that's as there's we're getting into the backstory of Highlander. Let's get into the backstory of PAT626. Stalwart DJ, host of a number of shows. We did the super villain origin story for me on your show, but we go superhero here on Space Couch. How did you get started? Tell us about your radioactive spider bite.
So it I've been into music since I was a child, because uh, I've talked a little bit about this on my personal shows, but I didn't have the greatest childhood. Didn't have a great relationship with my parents.
Right.
They didn't really know how to interact with their children.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that they would do is through music. My mom had this thing where she would just we had one of those tape players in our car that would switch sides. You wouldn't have to pull the tape out, which was like amazing technology back in the 80s. And so she would put a tape in, and that would just be the tape for the month. And so that
Yeah.
I would get to know that tape very, very intimately. Anytime we were in the car, I would just hear that song and or that album. So I got to really dive deep into music. And meanwhile, my dad, who was on the other side of the country, again, not very good at talking to his children, but he could make mixtapes like nobody's business.
Wow.
So that's how he communicated with us. Was he sent us mixtapes, and then if we liked certain tracks, that would be basically what our phone calls would be once a month. Would be we would start talking about the stuff he sent us, and if there were particular ones that stood out to us, then he would send us everything he owned by that artist. And it's for a while, since both my parents are hippies, it was mostly like progressive rock and stuff like that. But my dad started getting into like goth and stuff like that in the Utah scene. And so when I was in 7th grade, taking German for the first time, he was like, "Okay, hey, you're taking German. Here's a German band I like. Let me see what you think." And that is how I got exposed to Das Ich.
Really? Your dad turned you on to Das Ich?
My dad turned me on to Das Ich, and when I loved the hell out of it, then he sent me, okay, well, here's the only other German band I know, Einstürzen der Neubauten.
Wow.
And so it would be really funny when I would be talking to like German teachers and people from Germany that would later meet and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm into like German music." They're like, "Oh, you mean like Rammstein?" Which is apparently like the thing they always heard. I was like, "Oh no, just Einstürzen der Neubauten." Wait, what?
Yeah, right. I always say I've never gotten more use out of my undergrad degree in German than in green rooms at industrial festivals.
Exactly. Well, no, and that's the thing is that my German teacher actually totally supported this too. So when I went to my first Einstürzen der Neubauten concert, she was totally fine with me having missed a day of school to go.
That's amazing.
As long as I gave a report about it in German.
Oh, ausgezeichnet. I want to, as guests of the show may know, I tend to lay out a game plan, or excuse me, followers of the show might know. I tend to lay out a game plan for our guests and sort of send you perspective questions ahead of time. And I want to go outside that a little bit now because you're saying something that's kind of resonating to me. We had almost inverted childhoods, but kind of got to the same place in a weird way.
Yeah.
That same place being this weird industrial family. I grew up with extremely yuppie parents in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, hard Midwest, who had, you're going to be an advertising exec sort of thing. Yeah. And very present in my life. They're still together. But not the easiest childhood. I don't talk about it a lot, but
Yeah.
um, y there's some stuff there, and
Yeah. I don't
music.
think I've met I haven't met too many people who do what we do that had a very easy
Well,
childhood.
that's where I'm going with it, man. Because it's
Yeah.
like it's even, and music was like it wasn't discouraged, but it was like this other fun aside. So it's interesting
Hmm.
that you had hippie parents in a completely different environment that communicated to you through music, as opposed to like when I started going down this musical path, it was just this like, no, 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 anything but that, anything but no, 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 no. And then it just finally this acceptance, but that was sort of became your avenue to industrial music, um, is fascinating to me. And then but is it? Why do you think that happened? Is it that kernel? And I'm getting really woo woo, but it's something I've been doing on Space Couch lately. So
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go with this. Is there something inherent to industrial music as an entity that sort of attracts? I'm going to say people, even though we're fairly different in a lot of ways, I'm going to say I'm feeling a lot of simpatico with you.
Yeah.
Is there something in industrial music intrinsically that draws one such as us to it?
Well, I think part of it is just that, much to our chagrin, industrial music is never going to be the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to be like this huge, uh, like, especially in America, big stadium tours,
Mm-hmm.
playing on major channels, like that sort of thing. Like, uh, we're just never going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And but then that actually ends up being a really good part about it, because that means that when you discover it, it is this thing. I just watched Miss Marvel, so there's a phrase that came out in that I really enjoyed. What you are seeking is seeking you.
Mm.
And I feel like because we discover this music that is also very off the beaten path, if it resonates with us, it resonates in a big way, because there is this, oh my God, I have been searching for it and now I have found it. Um, and I think that's true with any subgenre that doesn't get mainstream airplay. Is if it hits you, it hits you it hits you extra hard because of its rarity.
Uh huh.
And then, because then immediately you start also then finding, when you start finding other people that,
The iso
I can
space.
see but I can't
You
hear.
can't hear me. Okay. Uh,
Now I can hear you.
All
Good
right.
to go.
I
All
was
right.
just telling our audience the isolation and like the just the quiet is really nice out here in space, but there is this disadvantage where like, it's wildly impractical on every front to like shoot your signal way out into space. You're coming from Virginia on Earth there, but you're shooting this to our
Well,
terrestrial.
yeah, and I broke my satellite, so.
Okay. And we're shooting that to our terrestrial base in Boston, and then all the way out. I'm in Alpha Centauri today, actually. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so it's billions of miles out. So we run into audio issues every now and then. Really, it's kind of a horrific miracle that we are able to do this show at all. But it's totally worth it because we get to make great points like you were just about to do. And of course, we cut out right about at the worst time. So if I could just give you the 140 character Twitter version of what you're just saying, synthesize it down. We have,
Yeah.
is it because of the rarity of something like industrial music, it may speak to the sort of the nuanced capital, the people said they would call themselves the nuanced or the asides or the singularity. It's just these sort of outcast things, sort of find this outcast genre. Is that
Hmm.
more or less what you were going for? Okay.
Well, I mean, because it's really tough to already be a bit of an outcast, because it'll
Mm-hmm.
no doubt shock and horrify you that I was not a popular kid in school. And that's actually part of my superhero origin story,
Yeah.
is that, instead of hanging out with people, I mostly sat in my room
Uh huh.
listening to music and then making mixtapes for other people when I finally became friends with them.
Right.
So that led to me
That's my high
becoming a
school.
DJ. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. and I think though, so when you have trouble relating to people, you find something else that you can relate to. And when, so for a while it was like pop music, but that wasn't quite doing it for me. Although I was blessed to have been born in the '80s, so I was
Hmm.
getting stuff like, my first pop loves were like B-52s and stuff like
Totally.
that. Yeah. For 5 seconds, I actually had people wanting to be my friends because I owned a mini boombox and the single of Love Shack. Uh, but,
That was that was currency when you were 9.
yeah, exactly. Like big deal.
Big deal,
Um,
man.
but
On
even then, I
tape,
wasn't like,
fancy.
yeah, I wasn't fully nailing it though, until I started discovering, like, first I got into like the stuff that my mom and dad were in that you couldn't normally hear on the
Hmm.
radio. But then eventually I got into the stuff that they weren't even necessarily into either.
Hmm.
Especially my mom really had to wrap her head around this goth
Hmm.
thing. And as I discovered this, first of all, it spoke to me in ways because Dosik was using strings, and I had already fallen in love with strings and rock music. Like,
Wow, I've never heard that.
one of my first favorite songs of all time was "Nights in White Satin," uh, and by the Moody Blues, which was one of the big rock songs with strings in it. So when I find a band that is nothing but strings, but then also these harsh synthetic sounds, it was like all of that anger that I had was then mixed with all of that beauty, and it was like mind
Oh,
blowingly good. And then discovering that just nobody knew what I was talking about, it was like, well, cool, because no one ever knows what I'm talking about. So this must have been made for me.
oh God, that was
Like,
such a wonderful, pardon the pun, synthesis of industrial origin, where you're like, it's that, but not that. I don't have the vocabulary for it, but like,
yeah,
um, I got to do a little bit of smash cutting because there's so much I want to get into about you, and I got a little
yeah.
spacey, pardon the pun, at the start. So we sort of harness all this DJ energy into the products we have today. Here is just a little bit of a sizzle really put together of some of your shows, not all.
So
Yeah.
far, like the scene I belong to, like the what I like to call the new goth scene,
Hmm.
it's been pretty healthy, I feel.
Then the whole squad jams thing idea started happening. I'm like, oh, coincidentally,
Shit. Oh, God. How much health does this fucking boss have? Bullshit. And it is time for 2 hours of the best in new goth, industrial, darkwave, death rock, EBM, synthpop, and post-punk. Quite a bit to catch up on this week. Of course, most of the show's stuff that came out in the past 6 months, if not the past 6 days, including this brand new one from Fatal Aim on Subculture Shock.
And we're back. Okay, so we saw Subculture Shock, Subculture Talk, the Twitch gaming stream, any number of products. You are just a digital warrior, man.
It's amazing what happens when a global pandemic hits. I was already doing. I've been doing Subculture Shock as like a live stream and a radio show since I came out of retirement in 2017. But when the pandemic hit and I stopped going out a whole lot, I was like, all right, well, fine. I've got to connect with people somehow. So I just did a bunch of streams instead.
Well, let's say hypothetically,
Hypothetically.
somebody had like a couch-based interview show.
Hmm.
That a flying couch based interview show in space. Completely hypothetically, what
Right.
as
Yep.
sort of the OG of industrial interviews, what is a good and what advice might you be able to impart on a Padawan?
It's so weird that you say that because, like, yes, I was doing industrial interviews back when I was on the radio back in 2000, basically 2004 to 2011. but like I got out of it for so long, and so when I started doing Subculture Talk, I was basically like, this, like, Space Couch is what Sub Talk wants to be when it grows up. So
Aw, thank you.
so it's so weird for you to call it, like, like looking to me for advice on it. But I will say, something that you were actually doing just now, don't be afraid to go off script, is like the best thing that I can think of. When I was an English teacher, one of the things that I would teach my seniors about was like giving interviews, because they had to like interview people as primary sources for their final paper. And in that, the thing that a lot of people overlook is the follow-up question.
Okay.
And the follow-up question is where you get that real deep.
Oh, yeah. It's like boxing. Like you set up the hit, and then you go in for the action.
Exactly. Like, and you did it just now, and you're like, oh, but now I've got so much other stuff. Don't worry about the stuff you've got to get to, because whatever is popping up right in that moment is, I've discovered, infinitely more important than whatever questions I had
God,
to ask.
there it is.
Because it's that real conversation.
Totally.
And like, a lot of people that we interview have been interviewed before, and people have watched those interviews before. And what really, I think, if I add anything to interview videos out there, it is my willingness to kind of dive deeper into the questions by listening to someone and listening to their answers, and then having something prepared to jump on top of that. That said, it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes I'll be sitting there thinking about my follow-up question, and then the ADHD kicks in, and for a second I blank out about what they were talking about. Get it back together.
Right, or you've moved 5 questions ahead in your mind. And so when you're making a bacon sandwich, what the fuck? Like
Exactly.
Well, that's amazing, man. Thank you. The Gothic Terry Gross says Adam Baum, Massachusetts, in the house. What's up?
You want to talk about people I want to be when I
grow
up? Like getting to DJ with Adam Baum recently. He invited me onto a couple of his streams, and that was like a dream come true for me, because I've been watching him DJ since he was spinning at like the Dawning at below a sushi restaurant in Charlottesville. Like,
back when he was 3% body fat, not 2. That's awesome. Shout out to Adam Baum, former guest of the show. Where do you think give me a health update on your opinion, at least, of terrestrial radio? Is it still relevant?
So you mean like radio on the airwaves, like, not necessarily on like...
Right, exactly. Because, I mean, well, that's an interesting point, because you even have to make that clarification, because terrestrial radio used to be such a hard line of like, is it on my computer or in my car? And now those lines are so blurred. But I'm talking about old school electromagnetic spectrum bandwidth radio station tower, W whatever it is.
When I was a child, when I first had my first "What do you want to be when you grow up" paper in 4th grade, I interviewed a DJ on the radio, and really wanted to be one. And
that would have been it for me as a kid. Like going into a radio station, forget about it.
Yeah. No, like, and so when I actually got to be a DJ on the radio, that was like a dream come true. And it was a volunteer gig for the most part. I was a promotions director there for like a year, but that was just a part-time gig. But I worked there as a DJ doing several shows for like 7 years. And that was amazing, but it's also a very different time now than when I started, because the Clear Channel buy-up of radio stations was already starting when I started DJing in 2004, but it didn't get real serious until like 2007, and you started getting a lot of stations, like basically little monopolies buying out clusters of stations. It turns out that, unless you're in a big city with a wide variety of channels available to you, probably most of your channels are owned by the same 1 or 2 companies, really. And then you have like your public radio station. Yeah. And then it got worse when Bain Capital bought when Bain Capital bought Clear Channel in 2008. Because Bain Capital, by the way, is one of the big proponents of like Fox News and stuff like that. So you started seeing like a serious washing of radio. There's actually been studies done where like even the difference in the number of keys and chord progressions in radio singles has shrunk. And that's because the other part of this is not just the radio executives trying to like limit what sort of messages are going out there, but it's also because of and I feel like everything I talk about comes back to capitalism, but I can't help it. I'm a terrible leftist here. But the thing that then happened is with the thing that happens with a system that is built solely on like profit and on making, you have to get advertisers. I mean, we know this because it's kind of true for us, how we have to get advertisers to, or we have to get money somehow to make the shows that we want to do. And advertisers actually.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. Now you're back in. I would like to relate. Adam Baum says, my Orwellian nightmare. D2D42 agrees. Angel Spit says, yes, preach. We are with you, Adam Baum. And they ultimately have a piece of all the venues and ticketing to Live Nation. Back at you.
And that's a thing is that. But when you're making things for product, a lot of advertisers are like, okay, but we don't want to advertise on stations that aren't playing happy, uplifting things, because certain.
Oh, and hence the chord dynamic range decrease.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because what happens is that they want listeners of radio to be in a mood to buy their products when the commercials come on. And if that's if that's not happening, if you're more of in a morose, reflective mood,
right,
and less of a hey, all right, let's go kind of mood, then you are going to be less likely. Like the marketing psychology that goes behind this is fascinating, but also terrifying.
Yes, you are describing what you're doing right now. Terrifying, but you're also an amazingly fascinating guest. Thank you for. We've never talked about this on Couch. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you asked. I appreciate getting the question ahead of time because I already knew a lot of this, but I was able to go back and like look at my dates and figure out. Do a little bit of research on it because I am the Thinks Too Much DJ, so I got a brand.
Well, I am the barely thinks industrial artist that also has a show and a label, so we'll average out. And in a world where what are industrial songs about? The government or God doesn't exist or I hate my fucking dad, and now I don't want to buy stamps.com subscriptions or whatever.
And that's the thing is that like it's almost now I'm not going to say there isn't pop music out there that isn't breaking barriers and stuff like that. The Halsey album that came out last year that was produced by Trent Reznor was fucking mind blowing. But for the most part, those weren't tracks you were going to hear on like standard terrestrial radio either. So it showed up on like a lot of on a lot of like alternative channels, but not on necessarily any like pop station.
So we've got this hyper sterilized, sanitized, anesthetized product, and that's kind of I might lose people, but one of the reasons why I wanted to ask is like there's a big drive, or at least most of my life, there's been this big sort of drive to save terrestrial radio, and I can wrap my mind around that concept. Like I get it, but it just seems so imminently replaceable with like digital world. And like, yes, everyone can do this particular medium now from their home, and the alternative is such a huge expense in terms of equipment and real estate and stuff like that. Pirate radio, says Adam Baum. It's terrestrial radio is just a bizarre vestige to me. I don't know if we
So a
need to
thing.
preserve it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
It's
interrupt.
fine.
I for the most part agree with you, but I think the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that as of right now, not and it's hard to believe in 2022, but there are large sections of this country that still don't have access to reliable internet.
That's a great point, man.
Yeah, and those people are mostly getting their news and their culture from things like terrestrial radio or Sirius satellite radio. Um, we have a lot of people that can't get internet but can get satellite signal, and so they are listening to Sirius XM, but Sirius again is trying to keep up subscriptions and get advertisers and stuff. So while they have a little bit ironically more variety than some of your other terrestrial options, that's also not free radio. You have to pay money for it in order to get it. So for people that don't have a lot of money and a lot of access to the internet,
don't people
what
doesn't is that still a thing? Like, doesn't everybody have an iPhone now and you can stream whatever?
So that's the thing. You have an iPhone and you can stream whatever if you've got a lot of, what is the word I'm looking for? If you've got a lot of infrastructure in place. And now streaming off of your cell phone, that is becoming more and more common. And I think that's going to become the main thing. I think that once the generations that are just are very technophobic or very afraid of new technology, as they start to, for lack of better term, die off.
Sure.
As they get older and stop, I think you're going to see an even greater shift towards using internet radio and that sort of thing. Like even my show, when I was hosting Subculture Shock on WNRN, I was still also they were still streaming it live on an internet radio station, and I was still posting it as a podcast. So it is a thing that has been going and will continue to go in popularity, but I think it's going to take longer to go out, specifically because there is still, you've got internet companies that aren't and cell phone companies that aren't building towers and laying lines if they can't get enough customers for it. The thing that I'm really excited about is that if 5G can really get off the ground, that's going to make internet just available everywhere. It's going to make it easier for people to stream. So people that have not been served by the internet will be able to be more so served by it.
I had not considered that. Precious Ken on Twitch. What's up? Yeah, fascinating. Thank you for that insight. We've been getting kind of woo-woo, which I love. But
I'm always woo-woo.
We do have. I do want to get to some specifics on you for a second. Let's cover. Well, I'm invested in it, so I want to go here. The Subculture Shock Best of the Year countdown has been something of I'll say phenomenon. It's really been competitive. I'll say, like, I just see more every year.
And it got me onto a Gothsicles track.
It did get you onto a Gothsicles track. That is I Do What I Do, available on, I think that's on Industrial Lights and Magic, although it yes. Thank you. But yeah, there's more and more of a campaign every year here in the United States. We're talking about midterms, but that's really all second fiddle to the Subculture countdown. I was wondering what your thoughts or what your experience as sort of the man at the center of that, like, do you just see more submissions every year, or do you feel that sort of, because I'm coming from an artist perspective, so hey, vote for me on this thing. Yeah. Like, do you feel more of that? And And then I just want to. What are your thoughts on just the phenomenon itself?
Goes, submissions are based on whether or not I play your song on Subculture Shock. And every year I get more and more bands and labels sending me stuff. In fact, something I posted about on Facebook today was that at this point in time, I'm not even doing too many replays of tracks because I have so much new music to
Right.
get to that I'm just playing that every week now, which is pretty neat. Like I have played over 550 new songs just this year.
Wow.
And probably from about 450 or so
Fucking
artists.
hell, man.
Yeah. And so the best of the year, I'm really glad that you bring that up because it's actually like a labor of love for me. It's the busiest time of the year for me on Subculture Shock because not only do I make the list and send it out to everyone, but then I do this huge advertising campaign where any band that I can find their Facebook, I make like a bunch of different graphics with like 8 bands on it and link all of them so that
you do. It's a lot of work.
It is. It is a month worth of work, but it's really cool because a lot of bands then get excited about it. They post it on their pages, and people that hadn't heard of those bands before will sometimes click on the links that I post and go check them out, which is the whole damn point. And so it gets to be this huge competition, and I love it because what it basically means is that month a lot of people are listening to music and a lot of people are supporting their favorite bands, and a lot of people tune in to the show to see if they made it or if their favorite band made it. And even if I only catch like one new listener from that, that's still a big deal for me.
Wow.
And usually I get to meet artists that didn't even know I was playing their stuff.
That's cool.
So
this there might not be a lot of meat on this bone, and it's okay if there's not. But I'm just curious if you notice any commonalities amongst the chart toppers. Like, do certain types of songs tend to go, or is it not even?
God, so originally when I first started out, the chart toppers were going to be any band that was a long running band that even if that people would just recognize that band. So you saw like you would see like the latest Rammstein track or the latest Peter Murphy track or The Cure or something like that would often be up there near the top, because since I require people to vote for at least 5 artists in order to get their vote in, people that were just trying to get like stuff ballots for their friend had to be like, oh well, hey, I know this one, so I'm going to click on that one. So for a while you were seeing that, but what I've started seeing is that bands that are consistently making it have slowly been climbing up. So perfect example was the I first discovered Actors in 2018, which was also the first Subculture Shock end of the year poll since I had been back, because I got started again in 2017. And they scored somewhere in like the top 25, I think, and they've consistently gotten higher and higher on the charts until in 2021 they were number 1.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you see that with other bands slowly getting up there. Isserly jumped up to number 3.
Isserly,
and she was live in chat and she lost her mind.
That's amazing.
When she found out that she was at number 3, because she figured she was going to be in there. She didn't realize she'd be that high up.
Shout out to Isserly, Tiger Squawk Records. I could tell we were going to go long just from the top of the episode, but if you wouldn't mind sticking around for a little bit, call your own out, because we're generally time.
I'm having a blast.
All right, cool, man.
The only thing that I have to do today is finish Subculture Shock.
All
right. My boyfriend was like, "Oh, I remember from your interviewing Brian. You guys are gonna go long. It's fine."
You mentioned Actors. From your vantage point, who's got the goods now, do you think? Like, who should we keep our eye on?
Well, so It depends on the genre, obviously. I know that on Space Couch we tend to lean towards the industrial. And as far as industrial, there have been a lot of great acts that have come out, but they're ones that I think a lot of people have heard of from 2017 till now. So I'm gonna not mention them because they're playing at Terminus and stuff like that.
Okay.
But a couple of acts that I've noticed started putting out tracks recently that been around like 5 years or less that aren't getting the play they deserve. One of them would be Josie Pace.
Okay.
Josie Pace is like a rock band with no guitar, and instead leading into those industrial synths.
Dig it.
So it's got an industrial feel, but there's this very punk rock aesthetic about it that you can get just by looking at her mohawk. And I was really happy they actually ended up on that show No Cover, which was really cool. And went kind of far on that. Got to be tutored by Alice Cooper.
Wow.
But so that's one. And then if more traditional, like club filling industrial is your preference, I am shocked that more people are not on the Dread Risks train.
Oh, Dread Risks.
Because everything that he puts out, be it new tracks or remixes, he did a remix of a Barahari track that just blew my freaking mind. But his new album they put out this year is just constantly, when I'm doing the after party, which is my beat match mix show, which is a lot less format, it's like, oh hey, what's a song I haven't played in a while that fits here? I keep falling back on Dread Risks and Josie Pace because they're just so perfect for any mix, and they need to get more airplay.
Awesome. We will check out Josie Pace and Dread Risks. He's a friend of mine on social media. They both are. Let's get silly. What would PAT626 the Spaghetti Western look like? Like I don't know if you're the sheriff or like the renegade that rolls into town. I sort of see you more as like the traffic copy sheriff guy, where like if you got to assess the some new band, i.e. outlaw, rolls up, you got to, all right, partner, check your guns at the this.
So some people will say that this is the imposter syndrome kicking in, but actually I feel like my job is more of the bartender. The like, if you've ever seen
ragtime piano in
wonderful
the
and hilarious, yeah, exactly, like there's this wonderful movie called Bunraku,
okay,
which is a dystopian spaghetti western.
Love it.
Where you've got like the world has just destroyed all guns and gone back to simpler weapons in the hope of avoiding warfare, and it's just made people get creative. And the whole story is a cowboy without a gun and a samurai without a sword joining forces to take down the head of this criminal empire.
Sounds dope.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and Ron Perlman is the villain, which is just like fantastic. It's hyper stylized, but Woody Harrelson plays the bartender.
All right,
and he's the bartender that also like teaches them how to be the badasses that they are, and gets them to work together. And I feel like like what PAT626 is like a professional music curator.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to take center stage. I'm trying to take the bands that are out there and get them into other people's hands, and get people working together, get people like get scenes together, make magic happen. But I'm not like necessarily going out and punching the bad guy myself. I'm telling hey, if you want your industrial music kicks, this is where you want to go, or this is the band you should be listening to right now. And there's this line that Woody Harrelson says near the end about, when they ask him if he wants to like join government or something, he's like, I serve drinks and I fought so that I could serve the drinks freely. And that's just, that's me. I play the music.
Oh, love it. I love it. All right. It is now time for the Space Couch Standard. Let's do Subculture Shock, the video game. Would this be like a fighting game with like all the bands, or maybe it's like a side-scrolling brawler where you knock out the forces of boredom or something like that?
Okay, I would play the hell out of either of those games, to be fair. And it would be kind of neat to have like a band beat match fighting game. That would be more like the after party of the game,
cool.
But that would be really cool because then you would have to hit your combos on time, like with the background music. So it'd be like a combination of like DDR and fighting games, which sounds dope as hell.
Yeah,
I want this game now. But probably my game would be more like more of like a RPG, something like that. Like if you've ever seen or played Night in the Woods.
Nice.
It's one of the things that's actually in my background right now. And it's kind of a combination of visual novel and then other aspects. Like there are parts where you have to press buttons to play bass. And so I feel like it would be something like that instead, because the majority of Subculture Shock is going out there, making relationships with bands, talking to people, just showing up. And then the quick time events basically, or the mini games are making the show happen.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's do there's so much I want to get to. Let's we'll power through just a little bit more.
Lightning round.
Is there an interview that's you've held on to? Like, was there like a really big one for you?
Oh man. Well, I recently did a really long interview with this guy, Brian Graupner, which was a lot of fun.
Guys everywhere, just never shuts up. But
I had to say that because I completely forgot to mention Gasoline and Vertebrate as that was going to be my joke for band that you should look out for right now. Because of course, Gasoline and Vertebrate's been around for a while, but I hear that they recently made it real big splash on the DAC.
Oh, thank you. That was a cool moment.
And our interview was a lot of fun because we definitely it was just chatting kind of like this one is, and I love those interviews. But probably one of the ones that had like the biggest impact on me was one, and that's an important aspect of the PAT626 experience, is that I try to give artists that very few people have heard of just as much room as artists that everyone is familiar with, if not more so. So I interviewed Christiane Knight early on in Subculture Talk, and Christiane Knight is DJ Zayan, who currently runs Radio Zayan, which a lot of my streams play on.
Yeah, sure.
As restreams. But she also ran The Dawning back when I first started going to it, and was very instrumental, was the host of Subculture Shock before me. So basically taught me a lot of what I know about radio hosting. And then is now a celebrated author. So I brought her on and we talked about that. And I thought it was mostly going to be just talking about that, the old days. And what we ended up doing was just having this really heartfelt discussion about imposter syndrome. And about thinking like what to do when you feel like you're not good enough, and how do you do the work anyway, and what it means to have a group of friends or fans or whatever supporting you, and it was such a big moment. Like we were both near tears, voice cracking up.
Sounds really intense.
And yeah, it was incredibly intense, and those are the kind of interviews that I long for. Like I love it when I can come up with silly slogans and hashtags and stuff during the event. Weird projects like punk rock Freudian slip, for instance.
Well done.
But it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
we'll be on it. Cryfest. Hashtag Cryfest. But it's especially great when I can have those moments where I got to watch it during my interview with you, actually, when I made the point that Gasoline and Vertebrate being successful was exactly what you had said about, man, if I did just serious industrial, I would just sell out, and there I would be the best, and there you are. You proved it. You put your money where your mouth was, and I got to watch you experience that in real time, realize that, and those are the moments that I live for.
You can watch that on the Gothicals Instagram's probably the easiest at Instagram.com/Gothicals. I got to a really wonderful realization on our guest show, and you can see that reaction happen in real time. Thanks again for bridging those sort of points that I hadn't really correlated in my brain. And I've moved up a spot since that sighting. Anyway.
Yeah, I know you went up to 2,
right?
Yeah,
it's cool. It was
big deal.
Below Hexhart and after Watch Clark, all of whom I was just hanging out with in Seattle. So it was this bizarre little trio. What's next for the mighty PAT626?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because originally I didn't have an answer to this question. And then recently this week I was driving home, and I started thinking, like, all right, so have you ever seen the cooking show Chopped?
You've heard of it.
All right, so the basic concept of Chopped is that there's 3 rounds, and you have to make a dish each round using ingredients from a basket that are randomly assigned to you. And then I started thinking about, okay, but what if I did that with other DJs? And so we basically everyone got people ahead of time got to submit song ideas, and they could be serious or silly. It doesn't matter. Obviously, we wouldn't only choose silly ones, but then those would be randomly assigned to the DJs, and they would have to, during their set, would have to work 3 of those songs in.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it becomes
Iron Chef.
Yeah, exactly. It's like an Iron Chef for DJs.
Love it.
And so I talked it over with Jasper, and he came up with just a hilarious name for it: Goth Island Iced Tea. Because it's the mix that will absolutely knock you out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so
Smooth
he's working
going
on
down.
the logo for that right now, and I posted the idea on my personal Facebook, just like, hey, would anybody be interested in this? And the response was way better than I expected from both
Adam Bomb
DJs.
says that
Adam Bomb in the chat is down with
cool.
this already, and but also people were like, oh my god, I would listen to that all day. That sounds amazing. So we're starting to put it together.
Hell yeah.
Now.
Where do we go to check it out? Happen. Oh, it's still formulating.
It's still formulating. We're working on the logos, and I need to contact first DJs. We're probably going to do it like Twitch raid style, where it starts on one DJ's channel and moves to the other, at least until I can get a setup to where I am broadcasting it all on my channel.
We're all about evolving here on Space Cat.
Yeah, exactly. But my hope is for it to be the last Friday of every month starting in August.
All right, we will check that out. We have a lot of homework for you on this episode. Actors: Josie Pace. I fucked up.
Dread Risks.
Thank you. We're gonna check out Subculture Shock. Not only on Facebook but Mixcloud.
So yeah, it doesn't broadcast on Facebook. It broadcasts on Twitch. But all these
like you on Facebook.
I always post
you go
when
on
it's
Twitch.
happening on Facebook.
Twitch is your main thing, though. Well, you don't need to quantify.
I don't have a main thing.
Where should we go? Where should our listeners go?
Just go to Facebook, facebook.com/PAT626, because I post everything else on there.
So that's where we can go for.
That's the hub, yeah. Because Subculture Shock and the After Party, and eventually Goth Island Iced Tea, also all are going to air on Twitch, and then Subculture Talk airs on Twitch as well. But recordings of Subculture Shock are on Mixcloud. Recordings like videos of Subculture Talk are on YouTube. And then I get restreamed by some great internet radio stations, both Outworld Fleet Radio and Radio Cyan, restream some of my shows. But I post about all of that on Facebook.
All right,
Facebook.com.
So we'll check out that for interviews with some of your favorite artists, music, and occasional gaming. or what
Occasionally.
have you.
I found that a lot more people are into the music stuff than the gaming. So what I've been doing with the gaming instead is just recording sections of it so I can play it behind me like I'm doing right now.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I'm gonna do two things here. First, come back to Space Couch anytime. We'll do.
Absolute, dude. Let me know.
Hell yeah.
I can talk about shit all day. I love the sound of my own voice. That's a lie.
I do
by the
too.
way.
No, I this is we could just go all day, but I want to address just because the way I physically have the screen set up, I'm cutting off your shirt. Looks like you're wearing a misogyny is not a music genre
Yes.
shirt today. That who puts that one out?
That was Artifact Records.
Artifact puts that out. So
yeah.
Big ups.
Artifact Records, if you're watching this, I would love to get promos from you because I play your shit all the time.
We love. I mean, who doesn't have 20 Artifact recordings in there on their phone right now? Love Artifact. Has been just a staple of industrial music and makers of fine shirts, such as the one our guest is wearing today. Well, you could probably feel my vibe here because I gotta pull this flying couch back on into the station. We're really low on fuel. Do you have any closing thoughts for Space Couch today?
Well, obviously, thank you very much for having me on here. It's like I said before, I'm overall pretty content being like the background character, helping other bands out. But it is nice to be recognized.
Hey,
don't get me wrong; it's really cool. So I appreciate that.
Nah, it's wonderful.
And I would say, like, folks, if you're really interested in this sort of thing, please support your local acts, but also your local DJs. Like, obviously, you should be buying the music of the bands that you like. That's the number one priority because you want them to keep making music. But if you have a little bit extra, and I don't even just mean me, if there's a Twitch stream or a Mixcloud stream or something that you really like and you can give that DJ, if not a couple bucks, at least a follow, a retweet, or whatever, because that's how more people can then discover the music you like.
It's bizarre how much those little retweets or likes can advance somebody's career. I mean, how many times have you found a band just because your friend posted something,
Well, I mean, so perfect example. We started having this discussion of doing the crossover because I interviewed Syrinx, and Syrinx is on Tiger Squawk Records, and you joined. Showed up in that chat.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that if we can all work together, we're all strained, we're all exhausted.
Right.
But if you have a spare moment and this goes to me too, like I should do this more often. If you have a spare moment to retweet someone's thing or to just support, tune in and listen, even for 5 minutes, stop in and say, hey, how's it going? Thanks for putting this on. It goes a lot farther than you think it does.
That's Brian for Space Couch, for PAT626 of Subculture Shock, Talk, and all the rest, saying, I'll call the spaceships to Davenport, prepare for Devanicki, interface with Couch in space. Space Couch out. This was amazing. Thank you so much. I let us talk over the outro credits here if you have any.
I love these names, like Shelly What.
Shelly What? Yeah, go to Shelly. Well, we love
her. Like, this is the thing I need to do. I need to jump in on Space Couch more often because I'll meet all these.
Well, Planet Damage brings the best in all music. The Ditch is such an amazing movie. Check all that out at patreon.com/ not the gospel.